Hey everybody, welcome to Take the Black Live. I am Dan Selcke, the editor of Winter is Coming. I'm here with Cheryl Wassenaar of Cultures, and we're here to talk about all things, all things Game of Thrones, The Song of Ice and Fire. Thanks for joining us. Hey Katrina, hey Daniel, hey Kim. And today, of course, we are here to talk about the biggest news in the past week. HBO is making a Game of Thrones spin-off show.
Everybody looks surprised.
Okay, yes, we're not surprised, but this is big. HBO is laying the groundwork for the next era of Game of Thrones, or what surely they would like to be the next era of Game of Thrones. And Cheryl, I want to talk to you about it. I want to talk to you guys about it. How do we feel about this? Like, wait, let me do more questions. How do we feel about it? I have a whole spiel.
Oh, boy.
How do we feel about it? Is it a good idea? Are we looking forward to it? What are we excited about? Do we have any fears or trepidations about it? And first, let's hit really quickly what they're doing.
Okay,
so HBO is going to make a Game of Thrones prequel series about the Age of Heroes, set thousands of years before Game of Thrones, before the wall was put up. I'll just read, I don't have the synopsis actually. People like Land the Clever running around, Bran the Builder running around. This is when the White Walkers first attack. We don't know a lot about it before the Targaryens come to Westeros. The Seven Kingdoms actually are seven kingdoms, not one ruled by a king.
Whoa.
So there's a lot of possibilities. Cheryl, what was your reaction to the news when you heard that they're making this show?
My first reaction was basically, this has to be their strongest pilot idea, or this has to be their strongest concept. Because Game of Thrones famously had to have its entire pilot, like, reshot.
Did.
Because it was really, really bad at first.
The story is they screened it, and the people didn't realize that Cersei and Jaime were brother and sister, which is a huge blot, so they had to reshoot the whole thing.
That's kind of your first mistake right there.
Yeah.
So my thought is basically they think that they've got a winner here with this one. And they want to give it kind of the longest amount of time they can to make a really solid pilot, give it a really solid gestation time, because we know, or we've been told at least, that we're not going to get the spin-offs until after 2019.
Right, like 2020, until after Game of Thrones is good and wrapped up.
Right, so we've got a solid...
Which is, I do like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get burned out.
Yeah, we're getting a solid year and a half of development time for this. A year and a half to put the pilot together, a year and a half to get all the casting done, make something great. You know, all of that good stuff. So that's kind of my first thing. So that brings my reaction over to, like, the good side, that they've already kind of settled on something they think is reliable, and they've already shelved something else. So
they have shelved one of the series in development, right?
So they're already kind of winnowing and getting a sense of what's good, what's not good. So I guess my biggest fear is, how do you sell it to people to make it obvious that it's Game of Thrones without naming it something dumb, like Game of Heroes? Like,
I can fear that might happen.
Yeah, I thought about that for because, you know, what happens if you name it like Game of Thrones: The Long Night or something? Like, there's a lot of potential for
I can see that happening.
I know, me too. It's terrifying.
Like, do you? Okay. So, well, about the title. By the way, people have written reactions. We got Michael Douglas, HBO, so it will be awesome. Which I do think there was a precedent. Like, HBO makes good shows.
Yes, they do.
Like, I know Game of Thrones has taken some hits in the past couple of seasons, but it's still a pretty amazing show.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, from The Sopranos to The Wire to Veep, they do good TV.
Yes, they do.
I think we owe HBO the benefit of the doubt for now, that they'll turn out something interesting. So I think Michael has a good point.
Yes.
Hey, Julie.
Hi, Julie.
Daniel's excited about it. Sean is worried about how long it takes to come out. I think 2020s will be okay. I'm okay with that. Like, we'll absorb the end of Game of Thrones and get ready for a new thing.
Marvel has plans through like 2025, so.
Oh, good Lord. About the title, so George R. R. Martin made some comments about he'd like to call it The Long Night, which it seems like that's the direction they're going. Like, it'll be about the first time the White Walkers hit.
Yeah.
Although the synopsis said we'll explore, like, what the Starks were doing back in the day. We'll explore, like you said, the mysteries of the East.
The mysteries of the East.
So it'll have a wide breadth.
Yeah, and one thing about the mysteries of the East that was kind of what ding in my head was Martin made sure to say, like, we think it was 10,000 years ago, but we don't know.
We don't know.
And the Doom of Valyria, or Valyria itself, is like 5,000 years old. So it's possible that, like, we might actually get some Valyrian overlap. Maybe not the Doom, because the Doom is quite late in history.
Right.
But the
Like
founding.
late in history, but still hundreds of years before the show starts.
Right.
So. Taking a wide view here.
Late in history, she says. So kind of that ability to kind of condense and make sure we see things that people recognize as Game of Thrones. Like, because Valeria is so dragon heavy.
Right.
It'd be like, people show up to Game of Thrones for the dragons. I'm sorry, guys. It's true.
If you say so.
So, if you say so, there's another episode for you. But so being able to say, hey, we've got the White Walkers that you know and recognize. Hey, we got dragons too. That kind of might be able to help pull in, and Starks. That might be able to pull in kind of more casual fans as well.
Oh,
and
yeah, I can see that. Like they
know,
recognize
right.
It's a show with dragons, and we want dragons in it.
There you go.
I'm not sure. I don't know. Like, I hear the Mysteries of the East, and I see they might be, what are the Andals up to before they invade, that kind of thing.
That's true. There's a Shy by the Shadow.
There's the Yi-Ti, the Golden Empire of Yi-Ti, which is modeled off China. We never get to see it. But there is a lot they could sink their teeth into if they want to. And,
right.
I think that was smart. Like, I'll be honest, I was at Con of Thrones and I was on this panel about spin-offs, right?
Right, you were.
And, like, the consensus that we came to is I was pretty sure they were going to do the Dance of the Dragons, and my fellow panelists agreed, just because, the Targaryen Civil War. Just because, it had dragons. The dance would be great. It had family infighting. It had betrayal, and it had politics, and it had everything like you kind of think of when you think Game of Thrones.
Incest, too. No.
Incest, yes. When you think incest, for better or worse. And I thought they would go with that.
Jamie and seen the first episode, guys.
And actually, I think it was kind of a canny choice to go with this because it allows them a lot more options.
Yes.
Like the Dance of the Dragons is it's kind of set in stone, the story, and it's about one family. But here you can have things on Essos, you can have things on Westeros, you can kind of have something that sort of resembles Game of Thrones. This really kind of sprawling story across a whole world.
Took the words out right of my mouth. I was going to say sprawling.
It's a good word, right?
It's
very useful.
It's very, very helpful.
But here's a question for you.
Yes.
Does that sound too similar to Game of Thrones? I mean, think about it. So the Game of Thrones is about many different characters and many different stories.
Right.
Who eventually have to unite to fight this existential White Walker threat.
Right.
If we're doing the Long Night and we're spread from Westeros to the Mysteries of the East, Essos, whatever that ends up being, I feel like that might kind of go the same way. And is that a bad thing?
I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. I think it's going to play out differently just by virtue of the fact that there's...
It would have to, yeah.
The wall getting built and things like that. And there's going to be, I would guess, this is a guess, people, I'm speculating, that there's going to be more explicit magic.
There would be, because it's a lot earlier in time.
Right, because it's a lot earlier in time. We haven't had this period where the dragons are gone.
Children of the Forest will be around.
Right, the Children of the Forest will be around, all that sort of stuff.
We do have near.
Right. We do have magic in Game of Thrones, but the magic we see seems to be just a small portion of what was capable of being done in previous eras, just by the fact that the wall exists. Because it's this giant thing of ice, the idea and magic. So they're gonna get an even bigger effects budget for this one. So I think that there will be ways to differentiate it just by virtue of the time in which it's set. Like there's going to be a lot of similarities, but there's also going to be ways to show that this is not exactly the world that we know. And I think that that's a positive for choosing the Long Night. I mean, I see someone commenting about how Robert's Rebellion would have been a good choice.
That was Michael Douglas. Are you the Michael Douglas? That would be very cool. But if so, Michael Douglas thinks that Robert's Rebellion would have been a cool.
Right, and that's the thing. Like,
because you want to see younger versions of the characters, which I totally get.
I mean, they did a really good job casting young Ned, so
they did.
Can't fault them for there. But in the same way that the dance wouldn't have been a great idea because it's so set in stone, Bobby B's Rebellion would have been set in stone. So. And
that's why Martin said he didn't want to do Robert's Rebellion, because you're going to know everything that happened in there by the end of Game of Thrones. So that wouldn't be. I actually didn't think it would be exciting enough to actually have a separate thing of that.
Right.
Which I get. Again, I think it's a smart choice. I think there's a lot of room to kind of forge their own path with it. I worry a little bit a bit about it being similar, but I will give them the benefit of the doubt for now. And
Right.
why not just
Right.
go with it?
Right. You know, if they've they seem to be really confident that it's going to be different enough, just by the fact that they've already said like, oh yeah, like we want to see a pilot of this. So that seems to really signal that we should be at least cautiously optimistic about this one as a choice.
Jane Goldman, who is the writer on movies like Stardust and a couple of the latter-day X-Men movies, Kick-Ass, is
I really like Stardust, so.
I didn't, but I appreciate
Young
what
Charlie
you did.
Cox, Dan.
Which one's? Oh, Charlie Cox.
Young
right.
Charlie Cox.
Yeah, that was fine. But it would be cool to have a woman as a showrunner.
It would be
nice.
Great. It would be so great.
After, I mean, let's be honest. Game of Thrones is the production writing staff is pretty heavily male.
Yeah.
So it'd be good to have another voice in there.
Wouldn't it though? It'd be so exciting.
That'd be a positive. And how about the name? Like, if you would have named this show, what would you name it? And what would you guys name it too? If you have any names, let us know.
I'm not going to name it Game of Heroes. Can I say what I wouldn't name it?
Sure, go nuts.
I'm not going to name it Game of Heroes. And I'm not going to name it, like, I don't want any variant on Game of Thrones if possible.
None.
Right.
Would you be opposed to Game of Thrones and then a subtitle, Age of Heroes, or Game of Thrones, a subtitle, The Long Night?
Yes.
Okay. That is Cheryl's taking a claim. Martin suspects that HBO will want to put that in there somewhere. I can't keep a hold of this pen.
They probably will.
I don't think they need to, though.
I don't think they need to, is the thing. Marvel does just fine.
Yeah.
Naming things like, you know, Ant-Man
Frasier didn't have Cheers in the title. It did just fine.
Didn't.
Better Call Saul doesn't have Breaking Bad in the title, and it's doing well.
Right.
Ish.
Well-ish. You know, it's AMC. You know, Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead is kind of the most recent example of naming a spinoff similar to the parent show.
Yes.
And Fear the Walking Dead is not the greatest name in the world.
And it's not wonderful.
So I think HBO should maybe have a little more confidence in its branding. You know, if you use the same font for the title, that's fine. Game of Thrones is a really iconic font at this point.
Yeah, like there are ways to hook it up without referencing it.
Right.
Winter's Coming to Net suggests 6 Feet Under Westeros, which I think is pretty funny. I also heard Westeros World, like all that things. Oz, Westeros, you can do anything with that.
The Westeros?
Sex and the City and the Dragons and the Death. That could be fun. I mean, I feel like just Age of Heroes would be a good title, I think.
Age of Heroes is not a bad title.
Again, it's like, it's big and expansive.
Age of Heroes does kind of sound like a really bad, like, mobile RPG, the ones that you see ads for.
It's also like a movie already about something entirely different, but whatever.
Well,
or The Long Night. That's a good one.
The Long Night's not a bad one, honestly.
But I mean, that kind of like, it's a narrow.
Right.
Like kind of, you want it to be sprawling. You don't want to focus too hard. Maybe you do. I'm not sure. We'll have to see what they come up with.
Exactly.
And there are still others in contention. Let's go to the comments really quickly here.
Sure.
Julie Davies says it will be great to see a lot of the houses we have read about in the books but not seen on GOT. It's true. House Gardner, some of the houses that were like wiped out before the show started.
Yep.
The Tyrell predecessors. We could see like the days when the Boltons were skinning Starks alive and hanging their skins up in their basements. Those were good days.
I don't know if the Starks thought they were good days, but they're exciting days.
For viewers, they sound pretty interesting.
Yes.
Hello, Julie. See you.
Hi, Julie.
How about... So also, a little side note, there are still a few... They're not done developing ideas for spin-offs.
Right.
They commissioned like 5. One they're making a pilot of. This one, Jane Goldman's. One's been shelved, according to Martin.
Right.
There are still like 3 in development. Do you have any thoughts on... Could you take 2 concurrent Game of Thrones shows?
Nope.
Nope. Just a straight nope.
Just a solid no. Not even
Why not?
AMC runs Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead together.
Oh, I mean like that, though. Like not right at the same time. Like, I mean like...
Still no.
Okay. Why?
For me, like, I like having the time to breathe between seasons and different aspects of the show. Because it's not like a Marvel movie where they release like 3 a year, but you get the 3 months off, but it's only like 2.5 hours and then you're done.
Right. It's commitment.
Exactly. Again, you're taking the words out of my mouth, Dan. It's a commitment. And so being able to be like, okay, here's 10 weeks that you have to watch The Long Night. Here's 10 weeks that you have to watch Dance of the Dragons. It's like, that's 20 weeks. That's excessive.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I want more than one successor show. I've already kind of written about that on Culturist and been like, Game of Thrones doesn't need more than one successor show at this point. I enjoy there being some mystery about parts of Westeros that then George R.R. Martin can write instead of writing The Winds of Winter. I enjoy that aspect of being like, there's some things we just don't know yet, and there's some things we might never know. So for them to be like, yeah, we might make like 2 or 3, it's like, don't. Just let it be. Especially if they're gonna let The Long Night run for multiple seasons. Like,
you think that would be a story you want to? I mean, I'm sure they intend to do it over a period of years.
Right.
By the way, Michael Douglas has a great suggestion for a title: Tales from Old Nan.
That would be the greatest anthology.
Utterly on board with that one.
Would watch. Okay, yeah. I would make an exception if they made the anthology an anthology style after The Long Night.
See, that's something I could get more on board with. Like, I'm with you. I don't want to have like 2 epic kind of proper hour-long drama Game of Thrones at the same time, like a Dance of the Dragons alongside The Age of Heroes. What I could maybe take is like The Age of Heroes, their big epic. I'm sure this is the one they want to like kind of be the successor show to Game of Thrones, and then like make a half-hour comedy about Hot Pie working at the crossroads or something. It's just a Cheers-like sitcom about what happens there or something.
As long as there are
jokes.
That
I could do.
As long as there are jokes about the Hound getting his chicken.
Of course there would be. There would just with everything.
Perfect.
An anthology show, Tales from Old Nan.
Yes,
like a different
cool.
kind of show.
Right.
But we'll have to see whether they even decide to go all in.
Right.
Ooh, and Julie Davies would like to see the Tales of Dunk and Egg, which I would love. That would be so much fun because those are great novellas. But Martin has said he's not intending to do those because he wants to finish them.
Finish. What an interesting word choice.
Let's move on from that. All right, so
let's do it.
Any other further thoughts on the spin-offs or the prequels?
I'm about set. I really like that Tales from Old Nan.
Me too. Thank you, Michael Douglas.
Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Oscar winner. Okay.
Maybe. Question mark.
Before we sign you off, let's hit some quick filming news. I think we talked about the spin-offs mostly, but we should talk about this.
All right.
What do you make of this? So they're on the King's Landing set.
Yes.
It's still filming. We're winding down. I mean, I keep saying that, but they still stuff keeps coming up.
It's a very long wind.
I guess. It's a
like
very complicated show.
I'll see myself out. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so on the set, they've built a wall of the Red Keep.
They did.
And of late, the interesting thing that's happened is it's gone from being a red keep. The Red Keep is red. Who knew? And then recently they've painted it white.
And it's white.
What do you make of that?
There are 2 kind of possibilities I see here. Possibility 1 is kind of a possibility that people have brought up on social media from pictures replying, being like, this is the future. Like, they're filming the epilogue, somebody rebuilds the keep and they make it white.
I kind of like that.
Because symbolism. I would say that's definitely a possibility. Like, we know that King's Landing is going to get torched.
Right.
So, and the fact
we'll
that
have
we've
a time of it.
Right, and we've seen that big dragon mount, which seems to lean odds more to it being Daenerys. So, if she...
Dragon mount.
Because it's bigger.
Sure.
And I don't think zombie dragons can grow.
Fair enough. We don't know. But.
Trying to use real world logic here, guys.
On zombie dragons.
On zombie dragons.
2 things that don't exist.
Unpack that one. But, so I see that being a possibility, that, whoever wins, rebuilds something in King's Landing for continuity's sake of keeping that the capital.
I like that idea too. I'm not even sure if it's rebuilt. I think it might just be repaint.
Yeah, or reconstructed.
Because there's this bit where Joffrey describes why Aegon built it out of red brick. It's to us, whenever people look up at it, they will know the pride of defiance. Be reminded of all the blood and fire he's for to take over the 7 Kingdoms.
Yeah.
And I'm figuring maybe someone a little gentler takes over in the end. Daenerys or
she does want to break
Jon
the wheel.
or Sansa or whoever.
Right.
And says,
Jon Snow paints it white because his name is Snow.
It's true. And he likes that color.
Yeah.
And let's go with a little
No, he likes
gentler
black.
thing.
Are you kidding?
Or they're just going to repaint it red again. I really don't know.
That was my second. That was going to be my second possibility. Why do you keep taking words out of my mouth, Dan?
I guess we're just in the same wavelength.
It's true. But yeah, that was my second possibility, was basically that it's primer and they're going to do the damage painting on it.
That's probably the right way, but I
Probably
like
the
that we
right
can
way.
speculate.
But they seem to be still doing white on it as of the most recent photos.
Yeah.
So
That's
who
fun. We'll keep an eye on
knows?
that. We'll keep an eye on the spin-off news.
yes,
And we will keep an eye on all the news.
that is
Anyway,
our job
Cheryl,
here.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course, Dan.
We'll see you next week. And
Bye,
now I'd like to bring
everyone.
on fan-sided editor extraordinaire Josh Hill for our weekly segment, A Song of Dan and Josh, where the two of us walk through every chapter of the Song of Ice and Fire novels and just analyze them with some fresh eyes. I've read the books multiple times. Josh Hill, sitting to my right, has never read the books. He's seen the
Correct.
show. What can we dig out of these? Let's find out.
Oh, memories, good times. It's gonna be
Memories.
fun.
And today is a good one. We read, basically, this is subtitled The Aftermath.
Yeah.
What happened
Pretty
after
much.
Ned gets arrested. And it's through the eyes of his two daughters.
Yeah.
So let's dig into it. So this is Arya and Sansa stories. What do they do after their dad gets arrested? Very, very different kind of reactions to it.
Very much so. First of all, hello everyone. Hello, Michael Douglas, big fan.
Me too. Us, Catherine, and the kids.
Yeah. So, Arya,
So yeah, start with Arya.
we'll start with Arya because she came first. She, well, she came second actually, but in order of birth. But anyways, so Arya's big thing is violence, and
Yes.
it's an irrational reaction to negativity, which is very much in her character. I mean, it's what we've seen. She doesn't approach things calmly, I guess you
No,
could say.
she
very much-
has very little chill.
she has no chill whatsoever. And it's Sirio, right? Sirio?
So yeah, Syrio Farrell.
Yeah,
The-
Sirio. He's in this.
The,
he's in
the
that
chapter,
chapter.
opens with Arya is having a sword fighting lesson with Syrio Farrell, and the guards walk in, and they're like, "Come with me. Your father wants to see you." And immediately something's off. Like, why are you coming to get me? Why didn't he just come for himself? Why didn't he send one of his guys? And they kind of clue on to something's gone wrong.
Yeah.
And Syrio tells Arya to run away, and then like takes down 5 dudes by
Yeah.
himself, which is a good send off, I thought, for like a minor character.
It was. That was really cool. And it was kind of cool the way that it was not necessarily revealed that something had gone wrong, but the way he was like telling, or Arya had to look through the swords or whatever the saying was. And
He gives this whole speech about you need to see and like I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry. It's about having insight and
Yeah.
being able to see the truth of things. Like he
Yeah.
does a bit where he is attacking her and then he fakes her out.
Yeah.
And then and hits her, and then she gets mad at it. Because she's like, "You cheated." Which, by the way, I couldn't help but kind of look at that moment and think about Ned Stark's whole problem, where Ned's the guy who, again, thinks the rules are going to be followed and that
Yep.
no one's going to cheat and that he's wrong. And Arya, too, like, thinks Syrio is going to do what he says he's going to do and hit her where he says he's going to hit her, and he doesn't. And she gets mad about that because she's very quick to anger Arya. It's like,
Yeah,
you cheated.
very
And he's
quick.
like, if you were looking closely, you would see I would have done that even if I told you otherwise.
Yeah. And again, that's valuable lesson for Arya to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Something that keeps coming back. But
It does,
It is
because
cool
a
that it
lot
was,
of her arc is about her learning to lie and then literally be a faceless assassin later in the time.
Yeah, which is interesting in the juxtaposition against Ned, who is literally about to lose his head because he is such a rule follower. And then also on the other side, you have Arya, who is like, rules are basically a manifesto to her. Like, she sticks to
Yes.
them. Like, yeah, she's learning to lie. She's learning to trick people and learning to operate a little bit outside of the rules. But her own rules, like that list that she has,
Yeah.
the names,
It's ironclad.
that is ironclad, and that is basically the entire motivation for her character to do everything, at least on the show, and it
Oh, it's in the
seems like
books
so
too.
far in the books.
Arya is a grudge holder.
Yeah.
Like, it's a death grip onto the grudges. She
yeah.
loves her grudges.
Oh yeah.
It's like her and Cersei just like love their grudges. They're best friends.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, in this chapter, and she kind of starts that way. Like we see a lot of Arya themes crop up here.
Yeah.
Mainly like death, murder, and lying.
Happy themes.
Happy themes. She does get out.
Yep.
So Syrio Farrell tells her to leave. She does, and he dies off screen, off page, which I think is maybe the reason a lot of fans tend to think that.
He's not dead.
Yeah, because we don't see him die, and he's just such a fun character. Like here, I'm going to read the little bit where he takes out 5 guys by himself. Sirio checked one sword with his stick and whirled away from a second. Off balance, the second man lurched into the first. Sirio put a boot to his back, and the red cloaks went down together. The third guard came leaping over them, slashing at the water dancer's head. Sirio ducked under the blade and thrust upward. The guardsman fell screaming as blood welled from the red, wet hole where his left eye had been. Like, I think people have a hard time believing, like, the character's so cool. How could he just die like that?
Right.
But, I mean, Martin does it all the time, so I think he's dead.
It's true, but also, I mean, this is maybe grasping at straws, but going back to the first time that you read this book, the idea that a character like this could just be killed off is
Like,
a little
off
foreign.
page, unceremoniously, yeah.
Yeah, and you haven't gotten to everybody can go at any time whatsoever. This is still kind of a new concept because Ned's still alive at this point, whom we think is kind
Before
of the hero of the
Ned,
book.
it didn't occur to people, I think, that kind of thing could just happen.
Exactly. So, like, kind of hanging on to that old feeling of there's no way that Sirio is dead. Not necessarily because we think that he isn't dead. It's just that you're going back to that feeling that you had the first time you read it, where it just doesn't make any sense whatsoever that he get killed off page, and you hang on to that. But
Exactly. Let's go back to the death and murder of Arya. So Arya kills a person here.
She does.
She makes her first kill. She's trying to escape the Red Keep. She's in the stables. She's looking for her sword, Needle, and she intends to just get on a horse and ride all the way back to King's Landing, which, by the way, is really fun.
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of the reason people like early Arya a lot. She's just spunky. She's got a lot of heart.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, when Sirio's being face down, she, like, stands beside him with her wooden stick, and it's like, you're not going to take me. I mean, that's just adorable. And she thinks that she can just ride all the way back to Winterfell by herself on a horse. Maybe she can. I don't know. But just the can-do attitude is very endearing.
yeah.
But anyway, when she's fishing around for her sword, a stable boy comes up and it's like, oh, there's an APB out for you, basically. I'm going to bring you into the queen. And she kind of, without thinking, there's a bit of a struggle, stabs him. And then I like the way Martin wrote the death scene. Oh, gods, he moaned as his undertunic began to redden. Take it out. When she took it out, he died. Like, very simple.
Yeah.
Like, a very minimum of words to say this huge thing. Arya has committed murder.
And also, we're inside of Arya's head.
We are.
So that's how she sees the murder, is very simplistic. There's no drawn out, she's struggling with this, oh my God, what have I done? Literally, inside of her head, she's like, stabbed, dead, next thing. Like, and that's kind of good insight into who she is and how she operates. Because you'd think this...
You're right, she's
this
got a piece of it all.
Yeah, like this young character, regardless of gender, this young character, small child, murders somebody in cold blood and has no reaction to it other than...
He was trying to take her in. Like, she had an interest in getting past him. And she didn't mean to... I mean, she's never stuck it in anybody before. I don't think she meant to kill this first kid.
But just the lack of remorse. And also, I'm not saying that that's like a sinister, sadistic quality. It's just that, I mean, on one hand, it could be interpreted that way. But on the other hand, she is just this, like you said, she's got the grit. And she's got this... I guess that's the darker side of the spunk, but
yes,
this can-do
really
attitude of like, nah, whatever. Like, you're in my way.
I mean, yeah, she has things to do. She's got to get out of here. But you're right. I hadn't even thought of that. She doesn't really spend any time going to pieces over it. She's like, he's dead. That's weird, but I gotta book it. Like Sansa would have gone to pieces.
Yeah.
And then I really like the last part of the chapter 2, where she's making her way through the dark tunnels, trying to find the way she accidentally found last time to get out. And she's kind of afraid of the dark, but she kind of summons up this memory of when she and Bran and Sansa and Robb went down to the Winterfell crypts, and Jon was like covered in flour to be a ghost and spooked them. And it was just a kind of a funny family moment, and that gives her the courage to go forward. I thought that was sweet.
Yeah.
A nice moment.
Yeah, it's kind of, again, on the flip side of here's this child that just murdered somebody.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly.
but actually, she is sweet
child.
and innocent and a child deep down, because she's that. Yeah, both the explanation of the story that she uses to give herself courage, and just the fact that she had just killed somebody and she's afraid of the dark. Like those two things.
Yeah, I
matching
love it.
up
I
against
love the
each other are
contrast.
great.
And that is kind of the heart of Arya's chapters for a while. The contrast of she's in this crazy situation where she's just exposed to murder and death and brutality and torture all the time, but she still has this vulnerability and innocence about her.
Yep.
And that's kind of what makes Arya's character, I think, fascinating, at least until she gets a bit more hard-bitten later. But for the next couple of books, it'll be like that. And I think it's a really interesting ride.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Sansa, who also reacts to her father's imprisonment, but completely different kind of journey than Arya has. no stabbing kids for her, no violence. I mean, we learn here, she not only, I'm trying to phrase this. Would it be appropriate to say that she volunteered to get put away? Because we learned that she went to Cersei beforehand.
Yeah.
And she told Cersei, you know, Dad's making Arya and me go back to Winterfell. Can you do anything? Now, all she's thinking of there is, I want to marry the cute boy.
Yeah.
I don't think she has any conception that Cersei has darker plans. But in a way, and some fans still hold this against her to this day, she can be blamed for tipping Cersei off, which gave her some heads up as to what Ned was going to do so she could mobilize her stuff.
That is, I think, you can hold it against her. That's true. But it's the misplaced innocence, I think. Because in the other chapter with Arya, she kills somebody, which is in the dark, and that's kind of the contrast of her character. Whereas with Sansa, all she wants to do is stay. And all she's romanticized the good life, you could say.
Yeah.
And we saw that in the other chapters, the way that she's basically glossy-eyed over all of this. This is
Joffrey especially is her biggest blind spot. She
she
wants to see him as a handsome, gallant prince, and she just does.
Yeah, it's like she wants the life so badly that she's willing to basically distort everything in her eyes to see that. And she's willing to do something that in her mind is innocent, go to Cersei, who she thinks is somebody she's not.
The queen. I mean, she seems to like Cersei. There's this bit in here where I like this bit where they're talking, and Sansa says that she could see kindness in the queen's clear green eyes. Now we know there is no kindness in Cersei's eyes.
Yeah,
she just doesn't have it in her. But the fact that that Sansa's willing to believe she does, and that Cersei's acting that way.
Yeah, I noticed that too, and I figured that was the foolishness of Sansa. That's her seeing something, not seeing the whole picture, which is kind of a stark thing. You know, Ned can't see the whole picture. He's just kind of got the tunnel vision for the good stuff.
Right.
Arya
too, with the whole Syrio thing, where you cheated.
Thing. Yep. Same tunnel vision thing. And then Sansa, tunnel vision on, I want this life. I want the riches. I want to be pampered. I want to be the princess to the prince and the king and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
To the point where she's willing to look over. And I don't know if it's apparent to her, or if she's just looking it over willingly, or maybe a mixture of both. But to say that there's kindness or whatever in the eyes of Cersei is just an outrageous observation for somebody to make.
Knowing what we know. And I do think it's one of those things too, where if we read the book the first time, I guess with this one we already knew what Cersei was capable of, but we haven't been in her head yet. And we have been in Sansa's, and she just thinks of her as the queen, like someone to aspire to, like a role model. She does not suspect her of doing all these horrible things to her father.
It's the cult of personality is what it is.
Yeah, a little bit.
I'm not going to make it more about real world things like I did last week, but it's, the cult of celebrity, you could say too, because she's the queen and she is this very prominent figure, and she also happens to be the mother of the boy that she wants to marry.
Exactly.
So there's all of these things going that will blind Sansa from the truth. And again, that's kind of a stark curse a little bit.
I also love this moment. So Cersei summons Sansa into this council chamber where she has Varys, Pycelle, Littlefinger to kind of put on this song and dance for her. Yeah. Where Cersei wants Sansa to write a letter to her mother, to her brother, just basically saying what happened to Ned is not the Lannisters' fault. They're fine. I'm being taken good care of. They want plausible deniability.
Yeah.
They want a shield because they do not want Robb to mobilize and to come here with an army and fight them. They want to pacify it. Cersei does. And what they're trying to do is just convince Sansa that that's actually the case. Yeah. And they have an uphill battle because they've killed her father's men, captured her father, but they've kept Sansa in a tower this whole time, so she doesn't know what's going on. I also love this moment where Sansa's in this tower with her friend Jane Westerling. By the way, you should remember
Jane Westerling,
because she will come back in a big way in the book. They basically cut her from the show after this. She's on the show real briefly,
but she comes back in the books.
Yeah, in a rather big role. So remember the name Jane Westerling. Do me a favor, just not that down. So they put Sansa in a tower with Jane Westerling, who can actually fill her in a little bit more stuff. And then Sansa brings that up and but Jane's saying that she wants to see her father, who's dead, by the way. And there's this bit where Cersei kind of turns to the King's Guard who put Jane in there and says, like, why is she in there? That wasn't part of the plan. And I just, that knowing Cersei, she wanted to, like, throw something at his head and, like, toss some wine in somebody's face. Or, like, great, but she just, because Sansa's there and she has to be nice, she's just like, take Jane somewhere and, keep your little fingers pointed. We'll take good care of her.
Yeah.
And next time, come to me before you put another prisoner in with Sansa. I mean, another guest in with Sansa. But again, that's one of those things where it's like the kindness in her eyes, where there's things going on in that scene that Sansa does not know are going on, but we can see it as readers.
Yeah.
Anyway, how does Cersei convince Sansa that to sign this letter, which she eventually does?
Well, it's not so much in how she convinces you to sign it. I did, with you, agree with the whole Stockholm syndrome thing that she's got going on.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's like she does have a kind of an uphill battle, but to me, I never really saw it that way because I always thought that Sansa was just going to buy right into it, regardless of what, because she's so romanticizing the life that she wants that, I mean, at one point she's even like throwing Arya under the bus. Like she's willing to completely, and that's kind of what bothered me too about Sansa. If there's anything to hold against her, it's not that she kind of gave up Ned. It's all of the things. It's she gave up Ned. She's throwing Arya under the bus and all this kind of stuff. When she's going against the family name and the family everything, the house, which has been established both on the show and so far in the books as being very, very important. That is a little disturbing to me as far as what I would hold against Sansa, because all the other stuff, it's what she's a child, she's innocent, she doesn't know what she's doing. But the Arya stuff seems, and I know, I guess from the show that there's the whole feud thing. The Arya thing,
I mean,
that stuck
when they
with
come
me
back,
a little bit more.
This is what Arya complains about when she comes back in the most recent season. Like she finds the letter she writes here, and it's like, did you write this? We have a problem.
Yeah.
Because again, Arya holds on to grudges, and Sansa learns a lot since this encounter. But yeah, I don't. There's not no culpability. I mean, she's not like 3. She can have perception. She's a smart girl. In the conversation itself, what Cersei holds over her, I think, is mostly she threatens to take away Joffrey. And that is where Sansa lives right now. So she has little internal snits like, it was not supposed to happen this way. She had to wed Joffrey. They were betrothed. He was promised to her. She had even dreamed about it, which I love that bit, because, like, I dreamed about it, therefore it has to happen, is her logic. It wasn't fair to take him away from her on account of whatever her father might have done. And then Cersei kind of pokes at Arya, too, saying, like, well, your sister hit my son earlier. It runs in the family, I guess. We can't trust you. Which is what makes her go, like, I'm nothing like Arya. Arya's the worst. I'm pretty and nice and a wife. So Cersei is pushing buttons pretty well here. And eventually, I think the final kind of feather in the cap of why she writes the letter, she has this bit where she assumes that Joffrey is going to make the final call and that Joffrey is a very nice person who wouldn't actually hurt Ned. Her gallant prince would never hurt her father, no matter what he might have done. He had to listen. He loved her. Even the queen said so. Again, putting stock in Cersei's words for whatever reason. Once she was queen, she could persuade Joff to bring father back and grant him a pardon. So she does have a bit of a plan. It's just really, really misjudged.
Yeah. Entirely misguided.
Yeah. There's again, it's the thing I like about the chapter in that meeting is that there's one narrative, Sansa's narrative, where she's putting things together in her head, and she kind of just doesn't have the right information and just doesn't have the right judgment calls. And then there's what's actually happening, which is something that she doesn't really grasp onto, but we can kind of get tastes of through the chapter.
Yeah, it's the Sansa thing. It's the Disney princess vision that she has for her life. She wants to hang on to it so much that she's willing to go to these extremes of basically throwing her family under the bus to say, and not so much because, like you said, she does have the plan where she's like, "There's no way that something bad's going to happen to my father."
But also, she's doing these extreme things, but she's being talked into them by expert manipulators.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the whole the green, the kindness in her eyes, and everything like that. And Cersei is dancing circles around her.
Oh,
and I get it. It's adult, it's child, it's that she should, and Sansa's not equipped to kind of do battle with Cersei because Cersei is just so far out of her league. But just the fact that she doesn't see what's going on so so tremendously.
Yeah,
It's a
really
blowout
misses
that
it.
is completely one-sided.
It's like
contest
right
here.
here, and she's just
Yeah. But she's got that tunnel vision, that stark tunnel
Yeah.
vision of everything that I see, everything I dream about is going to happen, and I'm going to get there. I just have to believe. And the way that I see this going, I believe it's going to turn out that way, so it's going to turn out that way. And
Right.
of course, nothing that the Starks believe or see ever turns out the way that they think it's
not
going to.
for a good long while. I mean, just in one more thing in defense of Sansa, it's not just Cersei. Like, she brings in Pycelle,
yeah.
Varys, Littlefinger, and they're all doing this. Like,
Yeah.
they all have this. To me, it felt very like planned. Like, Cersei is like, I mean, what do you think, guys? Can we really have Sansa marry Joffrey after her father did this? And Pycelle's like, I don't know. They say traitor's blood is traitor's blood. Like, they're all designed to get Sansa
Yeah.
to in a very defensive position where she's like, I have to prove to them that I'm worthy of Joffrey. Because these important people are all saying I'm not, even though all they want is the letter.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they're thinking about Joffrey. Maybe they are in the future. So she does make the choice, though, and that obviously will come back to haunt her, haunt Ned. But it's like I said before, it's not one thing that kills Ned.
No.
It's all this cascading
Yeah.
events. Himself, Sansa, Cersei, Joffrey, the Executioner. It'll all climax in a big way soon enough.
Yeah.
And your thoughts, Josh, on either of these eventful chapters?
The aftermath chapters.
The aftermath chapters.
No, there's a lot of aftermath to take in, but I'm
was.
interested
They
to
were
see
pretty
where it
good.
goes from here.
All right. I think next week I'd like to only read one chapter, both because it's a little long and because I'm going on a little vacation for this weekend. I don't want to read.
Yeah.
John Whatever is the next one.
All right.
So we'll see how he feels about all this shenaniganery going on down. Actually, no, I don't think he learns about it for a little bit. I think the next time is our first encounter with a white. So that'll be a good time.
All right.
Next week, the next John chapter in A Game of Thrones. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're back next week, too, Wednesday at 4 o'clock with more Game of Thrones news, Song of Fire news, prequel news. We'll see. You have any thoughts on that? You excited for the prequel?
I am excited for the prequels.
I'm
For
pretty
one, don't
interested.
care what it's called, so we'll watch it regardless.
Called anything? Called
You can call
SpongeBob
it
SquarePants
anything.
Thrones?
I would watch that.
Actually, I
That's
would.
A hell of a
That'd be cool.
twist.
All right, we're back next week at Wednesday at 4 p.m. Hope to see you there. Have a good one.